All right, let's dive into the biggest story ever told. And I mean that literally. We're going on a 13.7 billion year journey from a single, tiny point all the way to the stars, our solar system, and, well, this amazing planet we all call home. So let's start at the very beginning. So here's our game plan for this little cosmic trip. We're going to start with that ancient feeling of just looking up at the stars. Then we'll get a front row seat to the Big Bang, see how planets are actually put together, and then zoom right in on Earth's fiery birth. After that, we'll watch its incredible transformation and finish with the biggest mystery of all, how life itself got started. You know, our story doesn't start in some high-tech lab. It starts with a feeling we've all had, right? Just looking up at the night sky. It's a curiosity that starts with childhood nursery rhymes and then blossoms into some of the biggest questions in all of science. I mean, we all know the song, but have you ever really thought about it? What's the actual story there? How did those little points of light get there in the first place? And what does it have to do with us? It's a question that people have been asking for, well, forever. You know, way before we had these super powerful telescopes, thinkers like Kant and Laplace had an idea that was, honestly, way ahead of its time. They pictured this huge spinning cloud of gas and dust, a solar nebula, and they figured that this cloud slowly collapsed on itself to form the sun and all the planets. It was a brilliant guess that really laid the foundation for everything we understand today. But to really get the full picture, we've got to go back, way, way back. So let's jump to the modern theory that doesn't just explain our solar system, but the origin of, well, everything. Okay, this right here is the cornerstone of modern cosmology. Now, the Big Bang Theory isn't about an explosion in space. It's about an expansion of space itself. Everything you see, everything you are, it all started in a single point that was unimaginably hot and dense. And when did this happen? 13.7 billion years ago. Just try to wrap your head around that number for a second. It's huge. That one single moment marks the beginning of time, of space, and all the matter that would one day become you, me, and everything else. What's really wild is how much happened and how fast it happened. It all begins with something called the singularity. The entire universe crammed into a space smaller than an atom. Then, boom, a violent expansion. And get this, within just 3 minutes, the universe cooled down enough for the very first atoms to form. Talk about a dramatic opening act. Okay, here's a great way to picture this whole expanding universe thing. Imagine drawing a bunch of dots on a balloon to represent galaxies. As you blow up the balloon, the dots get farther apart, right? Not because they're crawling across the balloon's surface, but because the surface itself is stretching. That's our universe. It's the fabric of space-time between the galaxies that's expanding. It's a mind-bending idea that was confirmed by Edwin Hubble back in the 1920s. So, the universe is expanding, and it's filled with these massive clouds of gas and dust. Now what? Well, let's head over to the cosmic construction zone and see how all that raw material gets turned into stars and planets. It all begins inside a nebula, which is just a giant cloud of gas. Gravity starts pulling stuff together into clumps, and that's how a star is born. The leftover material around the new star flattens into a spinning disk. In that disk, little particles of dust and gas start bumping into each other and sticking together, forming bigger and bigger objects called planetesimals. And these things just keep smashing into each other, sticking together in a process called accretion, until eventually they grow big enough to become planets. It's pretty chaotic. Okay, now let's zoom in. We're going to leave that vast cosmic construction site behind and focus on one very specific, very special project, the creation of our own planet, Earth. So, our solar system's construction project got underway about 4.6 billion years ago. And out of that messy, chaotic process of accretion, our planet was born. But the world that first formed was, well, it was nothing like the home we know today. Seriously, forget blue oceans and green forests. Picture a molten, fiery world. A barren, rocky, incredibly hot place that was constantly being slammed by asteroids and comets. And its atmosphere? A thin, toxic mix of hydrogen and helio. Not exactly paradise. So how did that hot ball of rock get any kind of structure? The answer is a process called differentiation. While the Earth was still basically a liquid, gravity did all the sorting. The heaviest stuff, like iron and nickel, sank right down to the middle to form the core. The lighter, rocky materials floated toward the top, and they eventually cooled to create the mantle and the crust. This is how our planet got the basic layers it still has today. Getting those layers was just the first step.
Over the next couple of billion years, our planet went through the most extreme makeover you could possibly imagine, turning that hostile rock into a home.
Just look at how this all played out. So after the layers formed, the planet started to cool off. Volcanoes were spewing out gases, especially water vapor. That vapor condensed in the atmosphere, and then it rained, and rained, for millions of years. That's how we got our first oceans, about 4 billion years ago. Then, something truly game-changing happened. Life evolved in those oceans and started photosynthesizing, pumping out oxygen. For a billion years, that oxygen filled the oceans, and then, around 2 billion years ago, it burst out and started flooding the atmosphere, changing our world forever. And the result of that incredibly long, slow process, this, our beautiful blue marble. A world with a stable crust, huge liquid oceans, and a protective, oxygen-rich atmosphere. It's all the perfect ingredients for complex life to really take off. The change from what it was to what it is now is just staggering. We've built the planet. We've given it an atmosphere and oceans. But there's one final piece to this incredible puzzle, and it might just be the most profound one of all, the spark of life itself. So our next amazing chapter kicks off around 3.8 billion years ago. What's amazing is that it wasn't actually that long after the planet had cooled and the oceans had formed. That's when our best evidence tells us the first spark of life appeared. The way science sees it, the origin of life was basically the ultimate chemical reaction. In that primordial soup of the early oceans, a bunch of molecules somehow assembled themselves in just the right way to be able to make copies of themselves. That's the moment inanimate matter became a living thing. This first life was super simple, microscopic, and it all happened in the water. But, as we just saw, these tiny organisms were planetary engineers. They're the ones we have to thank for the air we breathe today. So, there you have it. That's our story. From a singularity smaller than an atom, through the birth of stars and the violent creation of planets, to a world totally transformed by water and finally by life itself. It is one single unbroken chain of events stretching back 13.7 billion years. And it all leads to right now. But here's the thing. The story isn't over. Which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What story will our planet tell next?